Thank you.
That's it, you're live.
Okay. Welcome to this workshop around youth engagement. We'll just hand it straight over to Claire, is it?
Yes, Claire.
Yeah.
Claire. This is
Yes, Adrian.
Adrian's going to start us off with a karakia.
Ka tangi te titi, ka tangi te kaka, ka tangi hoki aho, tihei moriora, I ngā mana, I ngā reo, I ngā hau e wha, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you. My name is Claire, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a member of the strategy and policy team usually, but in my past I have done a little bit of work with youth, mainly in the action sports space, and I sit on the board of a youth mountain bike organisation at the moment. So I was really stoked to be given the opportunity to work on this piece, which has been a measure in the LTP for the last 2 LTPs. So we haven't gained a lot of traction. So hoping to change that today with your help. This work is supported by the exec team, championed by Sam, helped with that by Adrian, and also takes into consideration the work that we do, Josh and Jane do in the Enviroschool space, and also Anka leads in the climate change space. There's an aspiration around engaging with youth. There was a supporting paper that went out, so that was a bit of a sort of a background on the fundamentals of youth engagement, what we've learned in the last 12 months. It outlines the fact that we have a responsibility to act in this space, and it sort of started to frame the opportunity a little bit. So the purpose of this workshop is to just kind of set the foundation, get a bit of clarity, provide some intent for this work, I guess. But the first part of this workshop, we're going to do some listening. So we've got some fine people at the back of the room who are going to talk to us about the work that they do in the youth space. First up, we'll hear from Stace and shares from Te Raro. So they're going to take our seats. You want me to sit with you? Yeah, I'll sit up. Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. We can share.
Okay.
Have you got it on our
Or I can just talk to him. Yeah, circulate it.
Welcome to you.
Thank
It's
you.
good to
Share their names. Share their names.
yeah. We actually should have our names around. Some of us have, some haven't. But if you want to introduce yourselves,
Yeah, of course.
we'll soon get our names out here.
Awesome. Kia ora everybody. My name is Stace Hughes. I am currently a community catalyst for Te Raro One Aotearoa Foundation. Te Raro is the philanthropic arm of One New Zealand, formerly known as Vodafone. And we currently have a place-based initiative here in Invercargill. It has run for the last 5 years with the focus of improving outcomes for those young people that experience disadvantage or exclusion. There is a number of factors that Shaz may touch on very shortly. Prior to this role, I've spent the last almost 20 years in education and education specifically, teacher trained and youth development, working for a number of NGOs in the youth development space. Youth engagement, youth participation is kind of my core business. Currently also sit as a trustee for the Southland Youth One Stop Shop Charitable Trust and the chairperson of Southern Queens Boxing Gym. Both organisations have a specific focus on young people as well. Yes.
I'm Shaz Rees. I'm the Insights Lead for Te Raro. And so basically that is around gathering research and insights about our initiative. The 5 years that we're spending here, that One New Zealand and Te Raro are investing into Invercargill. My background is in journalism, so I don't have a long history of youth engagement, but prior to this role, I was a literacy tutor and teacher aide at Aurora College for 4 years. So that's where I kind of got this passion for helping young people. And I am on the board of the Grey Street Project and of Touch Southland.
Also get the opportunity of actually the young people to come with us as well to briefly introduce themselves. Wanna go, Mai?
Kia ora, ko mai kāre koki, kua he ria hau no kaitahi me Ngāpuhi. I'm a third year anthropology student at MSU University. I've also been a panellist on Te Ohaka Tūwhera, a rangatahi panel from its inception, and former head girl, Froden College, and national/international presenter.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Firstly, thank you to everybody gathered here today to hear us out and on as to why youth is so important in these governance, funding, boards, etc. spaces. My name is Luca Putter. I'm head boy at Froden College, student representative for our board of trustees at school, and I'm also on other various boards and panels such as Tūmanawa, Kātauka, Southern Youth Focus Network, and one or two more, I've forgotten the name.
Invercargill City Council.
Oh yeah, Youth Council. Yeah.
Just for starting off as well, I was just saying that we've brought the young people to start with us today because they've been really involved in the mahi right from the beginning of Te Rauro's Invercargill initiative, but also through the youth engagement, youth development pathways that we've kind of solidified here lead to such flourishing roles in terms of youth governance, which we're excited about. So, cheers.
So I do have a presentation, but it's easy to talk to, and then like Linda said, we'll just circulate it afterwards. So I understand that in the long-term plan, there's some things around youth engagement, and so to begin with, I thought that we would kind of just differentiate between two processes, and that's the youth engagement and the youth participation. So when it comes to youth engagement, it's around consultation. It's bringing young people in to hear their voices, and it helps to get some insights in order to make better decisions. And youth participation, on the other hand, is actually giving over your power of those decisions and bringing young people on to make those decisions alongside you as equals. Do you want to add to that, Will?
Yeah, I'll just, throughout this, I'll be touching on a project that we've been running in Mirihiku, which is Breaking Barriers, which is around resolving transport issues specifically for young people in Invercargill and the wider region. We have components of both youth engagement and youth participation in that one project that's led to quite significant outcomes for Invercargill City in particular. But at the youth engagement end, it's all, as Shaz said, it's all about consultation. So we conducted a research piece which was all about hearing from young people around their experiences of the transport system, around regional Southland as well as Invercargill Bluff specifically, what their experiences of that was, what the barriers were in place for them to be able to access service provision, to live everyday life. So it was a great way for us to understand what the needs are from young people. And at the youth participation end, as we actually held a co-design workshop, which some Environment Southland staff actually attended, but we understood what these experiences are from this research component, but actually worked with community leaders as well as young people to look at co-designing solutions to what some of those experiences or barriers for transport were. Some examples of how that shows up now in the community is Uber is a great example. Uber was one of the solutions that we heard from young people very early on. The team of people that came together in that space for co-design. Uber had launched in Invercargill last year. That was solely because of the insights we gathered from young people and the solutions that come about. And we worked together as a community group or community of practice in that leadership space to ensure that that solution was brought to life. Another one that more recently has been championed, and mine has been heavily involved with that, working alongside South Alive. As yesterday, a group of young people presented to the ICC, what was the board committee? Subcommittee of Growth and Infrastructure, around specifically looking at the bus stops that are provided in Invercargill City districts and how they do not meet the needs of the young people that use the transport provision provided, etc., etc. So it's gone from actually just listening to young people or actually working alongside young people in a space where they co-design solutions, and it's led to positive outcomes, not just for young people, but arguably the community at large.
I also want this to be really conversational. So if anyone wants to ask any questions along the way, or we need to explain anything, please feel free to. I'll just say that part of the Invercargill initiative and the way the fundamental value of the Invercargill initiative is that community are the experts in their own lives. So when we came here as a foundation to start funding processes, we didn't decide who to fund. We brought the community together to create panels who then decided where our funding would go in participatory funding practices. And so we hold the same values when it comes to working with young people. They are the experts. And there are obviously, as we talk about the different levels from engagement to participation, it's kind of like a scale of how you can do it. It's not one or the other, and there's no bad and I don't know, there's good practice. So engagement is still a really important part of all of this, and it has conditions that have to be followed. So quite a lot of the conversation that we hear from our rangatahi is that they're asked to give their voice a lot. And it started to feel quite tokenistic, tick box exercise for them. And so there's ways that it should be done that are meaningful and actually make young people feel valued in sharing their voices.
Again, if I use the Breaking Barriers as an example, is when we did the research component, and it was mostly survey-based, it was very clear that why we were doing that. We had understood from Toyari, who did a report earlier on, that transport barriers were an issue. But right from the get-go, young people are told that we're getting this information from you because we want to work proactively with leaders to co-design solutions. So from the very beginnings of engagement, young people were told exactly why we were getting, wanting to understand their experiences and what the actual end product or output at the end was. I think lots of times that when consultation does happen, it's very much, it's informed of why we want it, but not what we're going to do with it.
Yeah.
So just as a clarification there, you're saying traditional consultation that we do seemingly is meaningless for a lot of young people because they don't see the links.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's needing to understand what the bigger picture of, why you're asking me for this. And I think in terms of bodies, not just this council, but most councils, consultation, does happen, but why, and what does the end look like? When you've heard my voice, what is that going to lead to? So Breaking Barriers were very clear, we're going to co-design solutions with you. And I think too often that's the point that's missed.
Mm.
It's like, what is the end? Where is my voice going to end up, and what is that going to help and influence?
Yeah, so in those conditions, it's about knowing what they're going to influence, and it's making that engagement accessible to them, and those spaces that you're inviting them into to have that voice needs to be spaces that they feel comfortable in. So while we were creating the co-design process, we actually asked young people what that process should look like, and they said, we don't want people rocking up in suits. We want people wearing casual clothes. We want to feel like we're equal. We want everyone to be very comfortable in this space. So that's just one example of saying, how is this going to work best for you to feel like you belong and actually give your voice? Okay.
So what they're saying, just following on from that, they find it intimidating to come into this sort of atmosphere. So
That's what we hear.
Ask those two. Ask those two.
But backtracking anyway on what Stacey said previously about the Breaking Barriers workshop, due to our substantial lack of public transport within the Waikiwi and Invercargill region, is that yes, young people were all there and contributing and speaking with adults in a properly manner, getting ideas rolling and getting the ball rolling in general, which has led to new initiatives such as Uber, but without having, I was at the meeting, Maya was, and we contributed valuable feedback and opinions, but without the previous experience we had been given on panels such as Te Ohaka, Te Whenua, Te Manawa, where we were given the stick, given the rako pretty much, and told or asked for our opinion, our insights and our knowledge on that topic. We wouldn't have had by any means necessary the correct approach to solve any of those transport issues.
So just going back to your question about the intimidation side of things. I wouldn't necessarily say that we feel intimidated. Like Luca and I are both on boards with adults in suits and whatnot. But the thing is that we're trying to make a new space. We don't want to go into those old governance structures. Like we're not going to, we're just trying to create our own form of governance that hasn't been seen before. And this is where the innovation lies.
Yeah, or more so just having us involved anyway, you know, the more youth, like if youth are around these governing roles and people that work in governance roles or businesses or anything, it takes away the feeling of them feeling inferior walking into a room and stuff like that. So essentially, the more youth are engaged, the less there's like the dynamic of one above another. Everyone's just the same, having conversations, having discussions about issues that are important to us all. And yeah, I've overcome that fear entirely myself, and that's due to my previous experience.
Just to add to that happens at all.
Yeah.
Coming into here, you know, even when 10 years ago when I come here, I was intimidated by the big words that we use. I said,
Yeah, exactly.
and it used to annoy me. But I probably still don't know half them anyway. But you do have different, you know, like Eric Roy here has been here in Parliament for 20 odd years. You know, a great orator. You know, can speak, and there are some people who naturally. But it is quite intimidating at all those levels. But you make a point, like I was just listening there before, even talking about how decisions have been made or how the outcomes and working through that. Like, and we're questioning from central government, they're doing things, but they're not necessarily listening to us. And we're trying to provide feedback and how that inputs into the decision making. It happened, like what you're saying, this level, you're trying to work out the youth. It happens at all levels, and you've got to work through that. As you say, you get confidence. After a while, you learn. At the end of the day, everybody's the same here. It's just experience, and some people have different skills and gifts to be able to voice their opinions and things. So it certainly encourages. So we totally understand trying to make a better, a safer place.
Yeah.
Easier to talk to. We're not all sitting there in our suits and ties, as you say. It can be quite intimidating, and it's good to hear that feedback.
I was just say it's probably good to tie some of these threads together. I think from both what Luca and Maya are saying and the wider conversation is it's importantly to enable youth participation, as from Luca's point around the opportunity to be able to be in decision-making roles in a safe space where they can kind of practice what that actually looks like is really important. Yeah. It's to practice governance, and also from Maya as well, not necessarily about intimidation, but, and I think we've all picked up on that, is the power sharing is really important, and understanding that you have equal power sharing in a space. And that's why I think just to remark in terms of that new governance stuff is traditionally it's not been a space of equal power sharing from people at the table, particularly if there's a younger person in that space as well. So that's, again, those two things are really important to be able to enable youth participation. We're moving from youth engagement to youth participation.
Yeah, just to elaborate on how these two amazing young people came to start working with us was through Te Ao Katiwhera, which is our Rangatahi Māori Fund. So we understand that Rangatahi Māori are the experts for Rangatahi Māori, and so we weren't going to sit there and say we should fund this initiative and this initiative. So we just brought this amazing group of young people and said, here's $250,000, what would you like it to go to? And they said, oh, you know, surely not. And there was a lot of caution when they first came on, and it took a long time. It took a lot of relationship building. And it wasn't until I think you started giving away tens of thousands of dollars that you went, okay, this is our decision. It's entirely our decision now. And that was quite a radical way for a funder, especially a corporate funder, to hand over power. And I think that that's just one example of trying to make sure that we're actually sharing. We still have the power and balance. We're still the ones with the money. We're still the ones giving the money, but we're trying to give them as much power in those decisions as we can.
Absolutely, and I think that's, again, is a great example of a philanthropic organisation using participatory funding and that way of enabling the opportunity to make decisions, but also make mistakes, because it's all a learning process from both the philanthropic as well as the young people. And again, it's the power sharing thing. I think we might segue a little bit and give these two the opportunity to talk specifically about their experiences in that kaupapa, because it's great. I think it's a fantastic example of what youth participation looks like. But I just wanted to, from a knower of thinking. I knew everything about what good youth participation looks like, to where I was kind of held accountable to the young people in that space. Is one of the very first decisions that was made from the young people, that the panel that these two young people were part of, was they wanted to create this Māori sports trust to be able to enable Māori sports and Mirahuku South. And I was like, that is an absolutely terrible idea. Literally, I said that to amongst our colleagues. And then I don't know if you want to look up, it's Kātauka Tukuriku now, but it literally ended up getting a nomination at New Zealand Sports Awards for the kaupapa that did. They've ended up mainstreaming Kiwarahi here in Invercargill, which is Indigenous Māori sports, because again, I thought, knowing everything I did about youth development, that wasn't a really good investment decision, but the young people in that space do far better than I do. So again, it's just a great example of, what authentic youth participation could lead to. But do you all two want to take over
Yeah,
again
I just-
about your experiences?
I'm not trying to stop talking, that's good, but in having that ownership and that decision making, there comes responsibility when you're saying that you don't always get it right. And that's certainly a growth thing, that having to deal with that's quite important. So it's just, is that part of the processes and
Absolutely.
that? Yeah, so
It
just
has
make
to be.
sure
It's a developmental thing right at the beginning, right?
when you're dealing with large sums of
Yeah.
money, and that that's
Yeah.
what we make
Everybody.
decisions. You have to be responsible
And
with
I
the
think it's
decisions.
important to note that it's not handing over full power, it's power sharing, and it's
Exactly.
evening out that balance. So while the young people were making these decisions, we were supporting them in their decision making. We were teaching them governance skills, and we were walking with them every step of the way. And we thought we were teaching them, but I think that we learned much more from them over the years than they ever did from us.
Exactly. Right.
Personally, I think that, there are a lot of issues regarding youth, and who better to get that information from than youth. So I think an important thing is giving them access to learn and to develop as a governor or funder or anything, because truthfully, my first meeting at Te Waka Te Whera, like you said previously, I didn't know a single thing that was going on. Words were being thrown around. I didn't know a single one of them. But throughout the years, seeing other rangatahi like Maya and a few other people who I've learned a lot of throughout the past years, I've learned a lot about governing and how to actually share money and think critically about issues like that, which I've now taken to Ferdinand's Board of Trustees, other funding panels and that. And I'd now like to consider myself a valuable asset to each one of those boards and panels. So I know that it is possible and it is critical for each board and panel to hear and consult with rangatahi, but also take their opinions and their thoughts on board, instead of just hearing them out and then going in the opposite direction. But for that to even happen, you need rangatahi to have an experience to develop within themselves to learn. And how can they learn if there aren't any safe spaces for them, or spaces where they can learn and feel heard?
What he said.
No, I suppose it's just about rangatahi are able to realise when things are tokenistic. And the thing about our kaupapa is it has been so safe for us. It's really captured the view that adults have the wisdom that we don't have, as well as rangatahi having those fresh views that only we can have, and only we can speak to other people who are our age. So this is a topic that I've spoken about at a national Community Foundations Conference, because people are willing to hear me out, but I'm there in person because I want to hear their steps. It's just that tokenism side of things that can really trip people up sometimes, and youth aren't as gullible as people may think. Yeah.
And I'm just picking up on that tangent, is know that, like Maya said, you can see when it's tokenistic. So when they're engaged in a tokenistic way, it makes them mistrust a system that maybe they really need to be a part of, if that makes sense. To put it out, so trying as much as we can in terms of the collective to do our best from the beginning is really important.
I'll
I've gone off
just,
so many tangents.
yeah, no, I don't even need this. Actually, you guys have covered it all. But I will say that we didn't make this up out of nowhere. So good youth participation is grounded on principles. So it is grounded on mana taiuhi principles, which were developed by Arataohi, which is the peak body of youth development for Aotearoa. So there are, it's basically some guidelines, a rule book for good youth participation that our work is grounded on. And I will share these slides. I don't know if you want to actually go into them.
Not so much going into them, but just knowing, like, yeah, mana taiuhi principles of good youth development is, if you go on this, progress this conversation around what youth engagement or youth participation looks for your organisation, there's lots of good knowledge already out there by well-established organisations, and Arataohi is just one of them. There's good case studies, like, so we can speak to the ones that we've been directly involved with in our community that have seen success, but this is happening already, and it's leading to fantastic outcomes for, and even better impact for young people and communities everywhere. So it's, maybe just try. That's literally what I'm trying to get at. Like, we see success. I think that's collectively why the four of us sitting here is because we have a vested interest and we know that it's worked well, but it's worked well in lots of other contexts and lots of other communities, and there's really good knowledge already there to help in this, to progress this kind of kaupapa. Anything else?
I had other slides that was kind of like, why it's important at the governance level and all this kind of thing, but I think we've really covered that. But I thought some kind of tangible steps of how you could look at it moving forward. I think the first one is to decide where you sit on the scale of youth engagement to youth participation, and kind of as a council, how do you see this looking? And I think some easy steps are inviting young people into the design phase of wherever you go with it, adequately resourcing whatever you choose to do, making sure that it's built on relationships. And I think it all boils down to that, really. It really comes down to it actually being genuine connection between what you're trying to achieve and the young people that you're engaging. Creating those safe, welcoming spaces.
I think I would really want to add specifically around adequately resourcing is we acknowledge the young people and their time and expertise. They're paid for what they do for us as a foundation, because we would pay a contractor the same for the same work. So why would we not adequately pay a young person for that as well? So they're on quite good contractor rates. Literally, I will just point that out there, because we do, as a foundation and an organisation, we value that the feedback they're giving us and the expertise is just as good as what we'll get from a contractor. And we heard that anyway yesterday when they presented at ICC, when the young people presented their great presentation on how to fix the bus stops. Some councillors said, well, we pay contractors more for what you've just given us. Literally.
Sorry.
No, sorry, I was going to say, do you have a question?
Yes, we've got a couple. A few.
Yeah,
Phil,
thank you.
and then
Thanks
Alistair.
for sharing this insight. And I have a couple of really narrow questions before winding up. In the story you're sharing with us about power sharing, whose money is that was enabling this to occur in the One NZ case?
So in our case, it was foundation's money. So the foundation allocated a certain amount of money to Invercargill every year for 5 years.
Right.
And then that was broken down into different focus areas. And one of those focus areas was supporting Māori aspirations. And that was instantly, we said, this is not where we play. We don't have the expertise here. And so that's when it was decided to create a te o katiwhera and give that to the young people to decide what to do with.
I actually need to add to that. It was a collaborative fund. So it was from Te Dodo, One Aotearoa Foundation, in conjunction with ILT Foundation, Clear Foundation, who was a national funder, and Community Trust South, pulled together funding that was then given to young people to distribute on their behalf.
So then when you speak about power sharing, the power that is being shared in that instance is the power to utilise or allocate that funding that is earmarked, ring-fenced for that set of outcomes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm exploring or asking this question is because we're in an interesting situation here as a regional council where, first of all, our power as a council is given to us through
Delegation through legislation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second thing is that we kind of all are accountable for the power that collectively we wield to the folk who have elected us to democratic purposes. And one of our challenges, I think, is going to be if we wish to share power, what is our obligations to the people we are accountable to democratically?
Yep.
Or another way of thinking about it is, can we take some resources, money, can we ring fence it and earmark it through democratically suitable processes for the purposes of sharing some of that power with you? The next layer of complexity for us, I think, and you might have some perspectives on this, and please, I facilitate co-design, so I'm really and sold on co-design as a way forward. But in the case of Invercargill City Council and bus stops and Uber services, we're talking about people-centric services that are place-based. And our challenge is that we've got this entire region-based, and a lot of our services are environmental-centric as opposed to people-centric. And so one of our challenges is understanding if we want to talk about water quality and sorting out water quality in the South, and how do we engage with youth? What is the youth experience of degraded water quality versus accessing transport? Now, I'm sure there is an experience, but I'm thinking it's going to be quite varied across all of Southland or across our reporting catchment. Now, I'm not saying this is insurmountable, but I'm just really keen on your thoughts or your suggestions for how we might tackle, what's the entry point to even start exploring how, and I'm assuming my instinct that co-design is part of the answer to the question. Co-design or explore the challenges with youth and what would their suggestions be. But I'm just really curious on your thoughts to know that different regional and environmental centric set of challenges as opposed to place-based, people-centric challenges.
I definitely want to speak specific to that accountability stuff in the first question first before passing over. And I think the two beside us are probably the best people to speak to in terms of that environmental stuff moving forward. But in terms of using the Te Ōkati for the funding and the accountability, because you talked about delegation of accountability for legislation and individual, the people sitting around this room have, that accountability. At the end of the day, in terms of the whole of funding that was brought together, Te Raudo as one organisation was accountable to all of the others. So I think in that regard, yes, the people around this space are accountable, but we at the end of the day took on that accountability, but put our trust and the young people that sat at their table. So that was a power sharing thing. Yeah, we were the ones accountable. The people around this table are the ones at the end of the day accountable, but it's how you share trust is probably what I'm talking about in terms of power sharing. In terms of that, from my take on that, people-centric to environment is at the end of the day, it's an intergenerational thing, and the young people sitting beside us are going to be the ones that are going to be dealing with any sort of environmental thing moving forward. But I won't speak to that specifically if you've got any thoughts or shares around, what that looks like.
Just to jump in quickly, on the screen, who I haven't introduced yet, is Sam, who's from the EPA Youth Roku. So anything we have in that environment space, potentially we might throw that way. But if you two have anything to say, please jump in.
Do you have anything specific?
Climate change.
In regards to this question.
Yeah.
Or even where to start.
Where to start. You definitely brought up a very good, valid point, and it made me think. And what I would say in regards to that is, youth voices can still be valuable on any part or side of the spectrum. Like, I do understand that they are very different issues, maybe more complex. I guess there is an argument that you could make that you don't need youth there, but youth could also bring a very important voice to the table, a fresh perspective in that, and then lots of places and boards and panels that obviously adults are capable
Huge.
then that's the point, we're making decisions that we probably won't see the outcome. This is, well, we're going to plan. And that's, especially around water quality, and these are long-term decisions that we're trying to fix. They're going to take generations to sort out. And it's hugely important to have the youth input into those, because sometimes we make decisions what we think. But the thoughts and hopes of the future, the youth or the younger people coming through might have a different opinion. We think it's right. You may engage and say, you need to go harder to make sure our futures are more sustainable in the future. I've got Alistair first, then Lyndall.
It's interesting, I see these things slightly differently.
Somewhere in there.
I sum it up very quickly that it's equal power. In other words, the power has come out of the adult and allowed, through trust, respect and safety, the youth to express what they're thinking. Now, and that has really come through, allowing it to go, everybody's on the same wavelength or same level, and then you bring in the good out of the youth that they never even thought, in some cases, is there. And you, as the older ones, saw that good and kept putting it out. So you got it, and then you got, you're really sharing skills.
Absolutely.
And sharing wisdom is really what it's about. And the power and balance to me doesn't, you've broken the power down so you can operate effectively. And it's just how we can do that. With our silly old brains.
Just because of time. Are you good, Shares, or did you have a couple?
No,
of
yeah,
points
no,
you
that
wanted
we're
to-
done.
We're done most of that, so.
I know.
So-
You talk for hours, I know. But thank you so much for showing up. Sorry.
Sorry, I have one
can we-
really
there's
quick
a
question.
Couple of quick questions, can we have those, sorry?
Yeah, you can.
So-
Sorry.
Your
If we could-
definition of the age range for youth.
So we, yeah, we use,
I am at heart.
From the Ministry of Youth Development.
We do, we operate in Ministry of Development's definition of 12 to 24-year-olds. Yeah, that's the foundation's definition of youth. But yeah, but we've worked in spaces where I would just almost be classed as youth in terms of up to 35 as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's an organisational thing, but 12 to 25 is how we operate. under
That's
the youth.
perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Is this something else?
What is the best vehicle or medium to communicate with young people? I don't imagine that, having a meeting around a table like this will be that productive, as you can only get a small number of people involved. We really want a good number of people involved, feeling that they are having an impact. But are there other mechanisms, such as things like Facebook, that sort of thing, to interact with in a way that you get your ideas into the system?
Yeah, it's a good question. We ask ourselves that all the time, and it's different in different spaces. I think for us, the most important thing was creating relationships with the youth sector. So we have very deep relationships with everyone who's working in the youth space, and that has allowed us access to a lot of young people and building those relationships up. But we kind of, when we've got those young people, we ask them basically, hey, how do you want to be contacted? What medium? Most of the time it's social media.
Yeah.
Nowadays. Yeah.
I just want to say that I would kind of disagree with the first point. I think there's so much more power than being in spaces like this with young people. Like today, the conversation between counsellors and the truth-seeking designers is probably the most you're going to get than us sending emails or sending out surveys via Facebook. That's a way of trust and power sharing, and I think it's really important. Cardinal heads, cardinal, you should always, in terms of the engagement we've done, we've always found it so much better when it's in person.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, everyone. I wish I had as much enthusiasm in my life at your age. And I might have been in local politics well before the age of, 56. And thank you for coming in. But, we are working with the environment. We are here to try and improve our region. And we are currently in this space, of this area where we are now, because of actions of people that are no longer with us, who have made decisions, and we want to look forward in the future and make sure we're making the right decisions for our environment. And I understand where you're coming from, where you talk to other councils with regards to transport and other issues like that. It'd be really good to have inputs from you guys, our environment and where we need to head in the future. Because currently we get older people ring and talk and discuss and suggest and tell and forcefully remind us of our positions. And what I'm finding while being involved in council is what I'm seeing is a lot of younger, before youth, younger people through the EnviroSkills program having a greater understanding of our environment and doing the actual work and starting a movement that will hopefully in the next 10 years, where they will be where you are now, will be more active within our region and our community for our environment. So I'm really looking forward to that future and trying to listen to everyone, because they are the ones at the moment doing that hard yards and understanding it. And they want to talk to me too, which is good. Which, go to the school and sit down and have a good old mash with them. But yeah, we are where we are because of actions of people past and still here. Let's hopefully work towards a better future.
If I can just add, I said, look, thanks for coming in. I take it we're winding up, are we? Or Sam got any input?
We've got, we'll let these guys go. Thank you very much for coming in. Massively.
I will say my bit then, sorry. So yeah, really, thanks for coming in. I think it's hugely important. In the last 10 years, my kids they're slowly getting into adulthood, and I often went 3 of them, bounce ideas off them and going, hey, look, what do you think of this within the environment? Sometimes they offered their opinion. I didn't want to hear it, but often not. It was good and really interesting. Usually you get 3 different views on one subject from 3 different kids. So, but it was actually really important for me to be listening to them saying, what do you think? So really good discussing today, and gives us some bit of thought, food for thought, looking into our plans and working as we look ahead. So cheers.
Not only thank you for coming in, thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sam gonna
yes, so
participate.
online we've got Sam and I think Nikki also. Sam is a past member of the ECAN Youth Ropu. That was designed to facilitate two-way relationships between young people and decision makers. And they've got a youth engagement and education team, and Nikki from that team is joining just to support Sam if you've got any questions around anything staff related. But yeah, Sam, if you want to kick into it and give us a little bit of a chat about your experience, that'd be amazing.
Great, awesome. Can you guys hear me from here?
Yep.
Awesome, beautiful. Thank you guys so much for having me here today. Kia ora, ko Sam taku ingoa, no o tutahi e Waitaha aho. So I thought to talk about sort of 3 things, and then I'll leave time for questions, happy to answer sort of any and all. So firstly, I wanted to explain what the Ecan Youth Roku looks like within the Canterbury context. Secondly, I want to talk about why this is really good for the council and sort of the wider region. And then thirdly, I want to talk about why it's specifically really good for young people. So firstly, in terms of what the Ecan Youth Roku looks like, I've found it to be incredibly productive, and it gets a lot of stuff done. So the Roku itself is selected in regional blockings by sort of grouping of staff, a young representative and a councillor. And so, for example, I represent the Christchurch West section, and there are representatives from Timaru, etc. And so that means that you get a really representative and a really sort of diverse subsection of young people. I know on the EYR we've had, this year a vegan and a hunter. We have people that are, very rural farmers and also people from the CBD. And so you do get a really wide range. I heard a comment before by a councillor that this creates a really wide range of young people, and yes, it does. But this is what makes them really pragmatic in the sense that because you have such different views, it means that the outcomes you get are often the most practical and the ones that I think often do have a lot of support. Often we're led by consensus. I don't think I've heard a vote taken in my time in EYR because we do just sort of like to come to broad agreements. I know for the Canterbury EYR, we are explicitly apolitical, which means we don't come with political voices. We come with sort of different perspectives in our region, and I think crucially there are really strong incentives to cooperate alongside council, because obviously that's where the mandate for operation comes. So I think oftentimes with youth councils there can be this kind of negative perception that they're adversarial, and I've found that to completely not be the case. I think we have a really productive relationship, walking alongside council. So what do we do? Obviously this will be kind of unique to Southland in the fact that these are different regions, but broadly we do three things. Firstly, we organize events. So this can look like things, such as tree planting. I, for example, hosted a public transport youth reference group where when there were changes happening to the bus networks, we got a range of young people to give their feedback on this in the council buildings. Secondly, we spread information. So for example, when we try to get feedback for the long-term plans, we're able, to try and get encouragement in that. And there's, things like we often do select groups. So on things like environment, democracy, transport, to be able to spread information about what ECAN's doing out to young people. And finally, we council, and that, for example, I recently helped facilitate an event in regards to the mayoral forum and lowering emissions and young people's perspective on that. And we're also able to give youth perspective on policy. And this can look like a number of things. This can look like, for example, directly being on committees or, being more fluid and providing input on specific things when requested. I think there's a really wide range that you as a council can consider when looking at this. I heard some concerns from councillors around democracy. I know, for example, for us, there is ECAN members that are appointed to specific council committees, but they're not giving voting rights. So I guess if that's a concern that's weighing on you when voting to support this, there's a sort of quite wide range of things that are able to be supported if that's a concern. So firstly, on why this is good for councils, the council and the wider region, there's sort of three things, I think, in regards to this. Firstly, because this is able to ensure a wide range of voices giving feedback on decisions. I think it's very easy, especially at a sort of regional council level, for constituents to fall through the gaps. Just A, because a lot of people don't know what happens at council level, but B, just because often people don't know how to connect. For example, things like deputations or speaking to council isn't often known about. And I think that the clear link that the Youth Roku has is really valuable in that respect. Secondly, I think it can be really helpful for councillors because youth are often incredibly hard to engage. And I think it's far more authentic when it is done done by youth. So for example, I know we run an Instagram page that is able to get a lot of information out, or for example, can get a lot of young people to events when councillors want them there. I guess just a base level, when that is run by young people, that can often be more effective. For example, when I ran the public transport youth reference group, we were able to get a large number of people from across Canterbury to come in, and they were able to be counsellors in attendance listening to that, but we were able to run the session done in a sort of youth friendly manner. Or the other example I'd point to is when Canterbury was considering changing how our bus fares worked. The EYR was able to submit on this, and our recommendations were adopted by council. And so what we suggested was getting rid of the variable fares to have an overall flat fare. And that was the consensus come to by a very wide range of people, because, for example, some of the rural members didn't want to abolish the fares altogether for the kind of like burden that would place on taxpayers. Whereas, they also provide the perspective that the system was quite confusing. And so what happened was that, there was a large amount of discussion that was able to come towards what solutions was best sort of for all of us as a wider region. The thing that we were able to bring to this discussion is the lived experience of, on a base level, just using buses a lot, right? And because we'd had that experience, we knew that, for example, the system was really confusing. And by having that, not only were we able to get like a suggestion that worked better for the wider region, we were also to get one that had support by the wider region by having that discussion amongst a wide range of young people. The third thing is, I think we're also able to just bring a light to what the council is able to do, because I think that often people are unaware of the role that the council, especially at a regional level, is able to play. And I think this allows for sort of recognition. So, for example, in terms of like waterways, a lot of people don't think that's the responsibility of the regional council. I know that we've done things like explainer videos in the past on social media, like allowing a resource for young people to be able to learn about what council does, which makes them more able to like both be knowledgeable and engage with the service. And then the sort of third thing I wanted to talk about is why this is really good for young people. I think firstly, this means that you're able to just have greater trust in council, because when you see the partnership happening with the council, even if you're not the young person that specifically is on there, just knowing that young people are giving their input means that you know that there is a voice for you at the table. For example, we were able to what this looks like was during election year, I think in 2025, we were able to share explainer videos on how the local election worked that were apolitical in nature on our social media. And I think that was a really valuable like resource that is often hard to get when you're from like non-partisan sources. Secondly, I think this just is able to really valuably nurture young leaders. For example, we have one of the founders of the ECAN Youth Roku spent a large amount of time in the summer working with ECAN on it, like environmental management and stuff. And I think, like Nikki could probably speak to this if she wanted to, but when we were doing the applications this year for the docu, we had far more applications and we had spots on the committee, and that means that we had a real like competition of young people, which meant that the people that are on the committee this time are kind of very high level in the sort of knowledge and skills that they're able to bring and have developed. I also think this is able to bring young people throughout the region together, which is really helpful. For example, me and Zara, who's another member of the EYR, were able to help with some allocation of funding through Sport Canterbury, through the connection we made through the EYR. And so I think the connection that brings can be really helpful. The third thing is I think it's just able to provide really valuable services to young people. For example, we've run things like beach cleanups. There's been a significant connection to Enviro schools. And I know I think in 2024, I was able to attend some Te Tiriti or Waitangi training for cultural sensitivity, which was, I think, really valuable. And then fourthly and finally, I think it just means that you're able to have more long-term perspectives factored in, because I think it's really valuable having like young people who are thinking more towards the future, considering it. Given this is the like wairua that they will inherit, often they're considering the impacts that these decisions will have broader than, you know, like a single council term is able to provide. So I guess those were my perspectives on the ikan youth ropu. And if there's any sort of questions that people have, feel free to share those.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, I do have a question. Phil?
Yeah, Sam, thank you. Question is, what is the duration that you would expect an individual member of the youth ropu to stay involved as a member?
So it can be really variable. I think the term that's set out for us has been 2 years. And then if you want to continue on the ropu, you reapply in the next round of applications. And so at a base level, you get very few people that don't serve their full term out. I served my full 2 years. And then you get some people that stay along for a while. And that's often really positive because it means they can sort of share the knowledge that they've acquired over that period. Like we had a couple of years ago, people who had been on it for 6 years. And so they had a lot of, I guess, institutional knowledge that was able to be shared with some of the younger members. So you wouldn't get sort of more than 6 years, and sort of that would be the very upper end. And you wouldn't, there isn't many people that would do less than 2.
Sorry, can I just, and the supporting it, the entry point to the journey, how are you recruited?
Yeah, so the recruitment, it's often publicized quite widely. So it's often done on social media. It's done through the like website. I think there's for the last drive there was I think ads run on Facebook and at the bus exchange and etc. And so you apply, answer a number of questions, and then a panel made up of a counsellor, a young person, often a staff member from eCan, go through the applications and choose the people they want on there. And often the values of the committee are used when choosing these. So for example, I know that there's, when looking through, they make sure that applications, you know, don't demonstrate like specific partisan leans, for example, and are able to operate in the apolitical nature of the youth ropu.
Thank you.
One more, Lyndall.
Kia ora, Sam, I'm Councillor Ludlow. Just you in the privileged, I guess, space of having too many applicants for some of those roles you mentioned. Has there been any way that you've maintained contact with the unsuccessful, so that they are still maybe in the mix, or still being informed about ongoing issues?
I was actually having a chat with Nikki about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think since we still have their contact details, we're still able to like invite them to future events. So, for example, the emissions reduction workshop that I helped facilitate, everyone, I believe the contact details is banked into the sort of bank of young people and their contact details. So all the information is sent out to them. So whenever there's events that are hosted, we're able to still have those involved. And given that we do applications each year, it means that the link to being able to reapply is sent out to those people. So even if you aren't able to make it on this year, there's still the opportunity to reapply, and even at that level, still have your voice heard. I'm not sure if Nikki wanted to add anything to that, but.
Thanks, Sam.
Kia ora koutou, ko Nikki Thornaho. I'm the coordinator for our youth ropu here at Environment Canterbury. And the way that's handled is with a lot of sensitivity, but I do phone all applicants and I talk through the reasons they may not have been selected. This year it was because we were just inundated with really high caliber applicants. And I have encouraged all of them to apply again at the end of this year for our 2027 youth ropu, and to go on a mailing list to attend youth workshops that are run throughout the year.
And I think it's really positive that we do have that, because it means, for example, I know this year we have, because we have such an interest from young people, the recruitment that's occurred, we have, I think, the highest number of rural voices than we've had for a number of years because of that large number of applications. So I think it really helps make sure that we have a diverse representation of not just young people, but the wider region.
Do you have one more question from Linda?
Yeah, sorry, me again. In that case, what do you think it was that activated those many applicants this time round? Was there a burning issue that they wanted, you know, or were they more aware, or what do you think activated those young people?
So I think there's kind of you often get two types of people I find on the dopu. There's people that really care about the region as a whole. And I find those often make up, I would say, the majority of people that, for example, have a wider interest in, you know, seeing, in our case, Canterbury succeed as a whole. So they're often caring about a multitude of things like the environment or transport, etc. And then you'd also get some other applicants that care about more specific issues. So you'll get some people that might really care about transport and that's their big thing, or might really care about you know, like waterways, and they care deeply about that. And I guess within the dopu, there's sort of opportunities for both those people, because there are some people that can serve in roles that sort of help at a wider regional level, and there's also within specific there's specific huis within, like for example, we have subsections for environment and subsection, and there's specific projects down waterways, and so you're able to kind of cater into that. Why there's been a specific interest this time? I think that I don't think that's because the interest wasn't there previously. I think that might just be because the comms department has been able to reach a wider range of young people, perhaps, and that's meant that some people previously didn't know about that. And obviously, the more work we do engaging communities, the more young people we connect with, and the more young people hear about us, and the more young people that apply. Does that? Yeah, I think that would.
Thank you. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Sam.
Is that us?
Yeah, I think there's no more questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam and Nikki. Really appreciate your time. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Maybe grab a coffee, a water, a tea. Adrian's going to bribe you with some chocolate to get through the last part of the workshop. What's that?
Right.
Okay, great. So is that all right? We take 5 minutes and we'll set up, and then we'll come back and answer some more questions.
Thanks, guys.